My gluten-free fruit pizza is an absolute game changer for anyone following a gluten-free lifestyle or just wanting to explore some new, delicious, healthy options. The light and nutty flavored crust is made with almond and tapioca flour. The cream cheese frosting is sweet and flavor rich without any processed powdered sugar. They're both naturally sweetened with maple syrup, providing only 16 grams of added sugar per serving. I'll show you how easy it is to make a creative, edible work of art for your next patriotic celebration. Typically, fruit pizza is made with a sugar cookie crust, but we're going to make a sugar cookie that does not have any powdered or processed white sugar in it. Instead, it will be naturally sweetened with maple syrup. We're going to start by adding 3 1/4 cups of almond flour, 2/3 a cup of tapioca flour, and 1/2 cup of maple syrup, 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. For a little extra flavor, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract for a little extra flavor. Then we'll add 1 teaspoon baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just going to use a hand mixer to mix this all together. And now we have this really soft and delicious almond flour cookie dough. Do a little quality assurance test. That was very good. Has just enough sweetness plus a really yummy nuttiness from the almond flour. This recipe will fill a 10 by 15 inch jelly roll pan, and we'll begin by just spraying it with a little bit of some non-stick. I'm going to use some coconut oil. And then with the spatula, we'll go ahead and just scoop our dough onto our pan. Now, if we were going to be rolling this dough out as some sugar cookie shapes, then we would want to refrigerate it first or even put it into the freezer for about 15 minutes or so to allow it to stiffen up a bit. But since we're going to be spreading it in this pan, we can just work with it right away. So using our spatula, we'll just begin by starting to spread it out in our pan. So there's several ways you can do this. One of them is to just go in with your hand and start spreading it. And you can spray your hands with a little bit of oil first to make them a little more slippery. And then you can also just take a sheet of parchment paper, and then I have a small bamboo roller, and then just begin rolling the dough out this way as well. It's great using the parchment paper because it's non-stick, and then we don't have to keep adding more flour to our dough to be able to work with it, which just dries it out. And now that's mostly spread with our parchment paper, we can just go in by hand and spread it the rest of the way. And it works best if you use the palm of your hands. Now that our cookie dough crust is all spread out, we can put this into a 350-degree oven for 10 minutes. Now we can make our delicious cream cheese frosting. And we're going to start with 1 1/2 blocks of cream cheese, or 12 ounces. I'm going to use my food processor. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter just to help soften it up a little. And then we'll add 1/3 cup of maple syrup as our natural sweetener. And for flavor, we'll add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice just to help wake up the flavors, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then we'll just put our lid on and let this mix until it's nice and smooth. So halfway through, I'm going to go ahead with my spatula and just scrape down the sides just to make sure it all gets well blended. Ooh, that looks fantastic. Better do a little pinky quality control test. That is on point. It's just sweet enough, but then has a lot of flavor from that lemon juice and the cream cheese and that little bit of vanilla. That is delicious. Well, here's a fruit pizza crust that I cooked earlier. Once you take it out of the oven, you're going to want to let it cool on your counter, and you could even put it into your fridge or your freezer if you wanted to speed that up. But this one is nicely cool, so we can go ahead and add our frosting. So I'm just going to take a spatula and go ahead and dump all of this frosting right onto our pizza. Once we're done making our pizza, we'll want to store it in the fridge, and then this frosting is going to firm up a little bit once it cools off. So now we can go ahead and just spread this creamy happiness all over our fruit pizza crust. Now, the one downside of making a dessert like this that is all complete and in one piece is that you can't just like take a sample out of it without anyone noticing. So I made a little bit of extra batter last night and made some smaller sugar cookies so that I can have a sample before I serve this fruit pizza. So while I still have a little bit extra frosting, I'm going to go ahead and spread some onto these smaller sugar cookies. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? Or impatience. So as I'm finishing up my frosting, I'm going to go ahead and just make some horizontal bands across this sugar cookie since we are going to make it look like a flag. So we might as well have our strokes going in the same direction as our stripes. All right, so now we have a blank canvas to start creating. To begin our star design, we want to outline our blue area so we know how many blueberries to use. We want the blue area to take up about the top third. So if we roughly eyeball about a third across the vertical way and drop a blueberry, then we measure about a third of the way across the width. Then we go ahead and place one out here at our corner. And then it's just a matter of filling in with our blueberries. And you can decide if you want this to be really nice and neat and orderly, or if you'd like it to look a little bit more organic and kind of thrown together. I'm going to start nice and neat. We'll see how long that lasts. So I went nice and neat on my outline, and then now I'm just going to start filling in a little bit more haphazardly. All right, that looks fantastic. So now we can go ahead and put in our red stripes. Now you could easily use strawberries or raspberries. I'm going to go ahead and use raspberries, and to help them go a little bit farther, I'm going to break them in half, and then I'll go ahead and start my lines. So I know that I want one to line up with the bottom of the blue flag, so I can start there, and then I can just kind of gauge the amount of stripes by setting a couple more where each stripe will start. And then that will make it a little bit easier to fill in. This definitely feels more like an art project than food. All right, last one. Yes, done. And to be honest, this is the first time I've actually ever made a flag on top of a fruit pizza before. But I've seen others do it, so I knew it could be done. So I went ahead and added some fruit to my sample cookies, which I think is my best idea of the day, because now I can have a sample without disturbing my masterpiece. That is so delicious. The first bite is really sweet, and then it just keeps getting better. The sugar cookie has just the right amount of sweetness, and I love the nutty flavor from the almond flour. And then the cream cheese just adds that sweet, smooth texture and just has a wonderful tangy flavor to it. And then you get the delicious, juicy flavor from the raspberries and the blueberries, which were a match made in heaven. And then you just continue to get this delicious aftertaste. So not only are these going to be physically satisfying because you're eating something that has some nutritional value, and it's emotionally satisfying because you're still able to enjoy this delicious classic dessert, but without any gluten dietary restrictions. And honestly, I think it's more delicious and flavorful than a traditional fruit pizza because you don't have that thick layer of white sugar and powdered sugar, which just drown out all of those delicious fresh flavors. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen to make this fun dessert. I definitely enjoyed it, and I'm excited to serve this at my next celebration. If you'd like to see the full recipe for this video, I've included a link in the description below, and it's also on my website, gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone who would love to have a gluten-free fruit pizza recipe, please share this video with them. And I cannot wait to have you again with me in my kitchen next time.